The city of Zama, Japan, in the autumn of 2017 was a picture of suburban tranquility. Nestled in Kanagawa Prefecture, it was a community of commuters, of neatly kept homes, and of a quiet, predictable order. But within a single, unremarkable apartment in a beige, three-story building, a horror was unfolding, one that would soon rupture the calm surface of Japanese society and force a painful reckoning with the darkest corners of the digital age. This is not just a story of murder, but a story of our time, a tale of how modern loneliness and ancient despair converged in the glow of a smartphone screen, and how a man learned to hunt in the vast, connected wilderness of the Internet. Takahiro Shiraishi was born on October 18, 1990. To those who knew him apparently, he was an unexceptional young man. He worked a series of low-wage jobs, most recently as a scout for a dating service, a role that required a thin of charm and approachability. He lived alone in a small, one-room apartment on the first floor of a building in Zama. Neighbors would later recall a quiet, polite individual who caused no trouble. But this carefully constructed routine masked an intense emptiness. Shiraishi was an ultimate digital native, and he found his true calling not in the physical world, but in the infinite scroll of social media. His hunting ground was Twitter. His method was as simple as it was diabolical. He would search for specific phrases, hashtags, and keywords. I want to die. I'm tired of living. Suicide. Double suicide. In the sprawling, often unmoderated corners of the Japanese internet, these digital cries for help were not uncommon. Japan has long struggled with one of the highest suicide rates among developed nations, and the internet provided a new, anonymous forum for the deeply troubled to gather, to share their despair, and in some tragic cases, to form pacts. Shiraishi, using the handle at Hangyo90, which loosely translates to acting in concert or accomplice, did not present himself as a predator. He presented himself as a partner. He would reply to these desperate posts with a message of understanding and complicity. He offered a sympathetic ear, a shared sense of hopelessness, and a concrete proposal. He knew a way. He had a plan. He had a quiet, discreet place where they could end their lives together without causing trouble for their families. His apartment in Zama, he promised, was that place. The first known victim was a 23-year-old woman from Saitama Prefecture. She disappeared in August 2017. Her family reported her missing, but with few leads, the case grew cold. Then, a 21-year-old woman from Tokyo vanished. Then, a 17-year-old high school student. The police, overwhelmed by missing persons cases in a metropolis of tens of millions, initially treated them as separate tragedies, likely runaways or suicides. They did not see the digital thread connecting them. They did not see the hunter. Shiraishi's process was chillingly systematic. After luring a victim to his apartment under the pretense of a mutual suicide pact, he would drug them, often with sleeping pills mixed into alcohol. He would then sexually assault them while they were unconscious. The murder itself was typically carried out by strangulation or blunt force trauma. The pretense of a pact was a lie. It was a one-sided execution. The disposal of the bodies revealed a cold, utilitarian mindset. He dismembered the victims in his bathtub, using saws and other tools purchased from local hardware stores. He then stored the body parts in a series of coolers and toolboxes, which he kept in the main room of his apartment. To control the smell of decomposition, he packed severed heads in cat litter. For weeks, his small apartment became a secret charnel house, a grotesque storage facility for the remains of 9 individuals. The banality of the containers, the same type families use for beach picnics or fishing trips, made the horror within all the more intense. Every serial killer's reign of terror ends with a mistake, a single broken thread that, when pulled, unravels everything. For Takahiro Shiraishi, That thread was the persistent love of a brother. In late October 2017, a man from Ibaraki Prefecture contacted the police about his missing 23-year-old sister. Unlike many, he took it upon himself to investigate her digital life. Searching her Twitter account, he found the exchanges with @Hangyo90. He saw the manipulative sympathy, the talk of a painless method, the invitation to Zama. He immediately took this information to the Tsuchiura police, insisting they track down this online entity. The police, acting on this credible tip, traced the Twitter account to Takahiro Shiraishi. Recognizing the connection to a jurisdiction in Kanagawa, the Tsuchiura police contacted their counterparts in Zama. On the afternoon of October 30, 2017, two officers, one from each precinct, arrived at Shiraishi's apartment door. They were conducting a routine missing person inquiry, nothing more. When Shiraishi answered the door, he was calm and cooperative. He invited the officers inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, they were hit by an overpowering, sickly sweet odor, poorly masked by the cloying scent of air freshener and disinfectant. The apartment was tidy, but the air was thick with the stench of death. The officers questioned him about the smell. Shiraishi initially claimed it was from rotting garbage, but as they pressed him, his demeanor shifted. The helpful facade crumbled, revealing the void beneath. He looked at the officers with flat, emotionless eyes and made a statement of such monstrous clarity that it would haunt them forever. "The bodies," he said, "are in the cold storage boxes." He gestured towards a collection of toolboxes and camping coolers lined up against the wall. The officers opened the first cooler. Inside, packed in ice, were dismembered human body parts. A frantic search of the small apartment revealed more coolers, and in a closet, severed heads stored in cat litter. The scale of the discovery was unprecedented in modern Japanese criminal history. In that single, small room, they found the dismembered remains of 8 women and 1 man. The victims ranged in age from 15 to 26. The man was the boyfriend of one of the women, who had apparently accompanied her to the apartment and was killed to eliminate a witness. The public revelation triggered a media firestorm. The Twitter killer, or the Zama apartment killer, became a national sensation, a symbol of a new, digital-age monstrosity. The apartment building was swarmed by reporters and morbidly curious onlookers, as evidence teams worked for days, carefully removing the sealed containers that held the terrible truth. In police custody, Takahiro Shiraishi was eerily compliant. He provided a detailed, emotionless confession, walking investigators through his methods with the detached air of a technician explaining a process. He admitted to luring the victims via Twitter, to drugging and assaulting them, and to murdering them. He described the dismemberment as a practical solution to a storage problem. His primary concern, he stated, was not getting caught. When asked about his motive, his answers were as shallow as they were shocking. He confessed to stealing a total of approximately 500,000 yen, around $4,500 USD, from his victims, a small sum that underscored the senselessness of the crimes. The sexual assault was a driving factor, a brutal exercise of power over the vulnerable. But perhaps the most chilling aspect was his admission that he had never intended to die himself. The suicide pact was a pure fabrication, a sophisticated lure designed to attract those at their most desperate and trusting. Court-appointed psychiatrists who evaluated him found him to have antisocial personality disorder, marked by a profound lack of empathy, remorse, and a pattern of manipulative behavior. However, they concluded he was fully aware of the criminality of his actions and was therefore legally sane and fit to stand trial. He was not a madman in the classical sense. He was a rational actor who had chosen to do monstrous things. He saw human beings not as sentient individuals with lives and dreams, but as objects to be used for his gratification and then discarded. The investigation revealed the meticulous nature of his planning. His online conversations were carefully scripted to build trust and escalate the talk of suicide. His purchases of coolers, saws, and cleaning supplies were made in advance, indicating premeditation. He was not caught in a spiral of uncontrollable impulse. He was executing a cold, calculated plan, refining his techniques with each new victim. The trial of Takahiro Shiraishi began at the Tachikawa branch of the Tokyo District Court in September 2020. Due to the horrific nature of the crimes and to protect the privacy of the victims' families, the proceedings were conducted behind closed doors. The public was forced to rely on official statements and second-hand accounts from legal briefings. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They presented a mountain of physical evidence from the apartment, a clear digital trail linking Shiraishi to each victim, and his own full confession. The focus was not on establishing guilt, which was undeniable, but on demonstrating the sheer scale, premeditation, and vice of his actions to justify the ultimate penalty: death by hanging. The most touching moments of the trial came during the victim impact statements. While the details were kept private, reports described scenes of unimaginable grief and rage. Parents spoke of their vibrant daughters, whose lives were stolen by a predator they had met in a place they believed was safe. The brother whose digital investigation had broken the case addressed Shiraishi directly, condemning him for his cruelty and the irreversible void he had created in their lives. The defense, faced with an impossible task, did not argue for innocence. Instead, they focused on Shiraishi's mental state, arguing that he was also a product of a dark online world consumed by suicidal thoughts, and that his actions, while hateful, were intertwined with this shared cultural despair. They suggested his motives were complex and not solely predatory. The prosecution systematically dismantled this argument. They pointed to the evidence of cold, financial calculation, the theft of money. They highlighted the advance purchase of tools for dismemberment. They argued that his actions were not those of a suicidal individual, but of a cunning manipulator who exploited suicide for his own violent and sexual ends. On December 15, 2020, the presiding judge, Kiyoshi Aonuma, delivered the verdict. Takahiro Shiraishi was found guilty on all counts of murder, robbery, and indecent assault. The sentence was death. In his reasoning, Judge Aonuma stated, "The defendant committed heinous crimes based on his selfish desires. He took advantage of the deep emotional distress of the victims for sexual and financial gain. The manner of the crimes, which involved luring victims through social media, is a grave issue that shakes the foundations of a safe society. The defendant's criminal responsibility is extremely high, and the feelings of the bereaved families are so strong that the death penalty is unavoidable." Shiraishi showed no visible emotion as the sentence was read. His defense team appealed the verdict, but it was ultimately upheld. After all legal appeals were exhausted, Takahiro Shiraishi was executed by hanging on 27 June 2025. The Ministry of Justice announced the execution in a terse, formal statement, bringing a final, grim close to the legal saga. The execution of Takahiro Shiraishi ended his life, but it did not end the pain of the families, and it did not erase the profound questions his case raised. For the families, there was no sense of victory, only a hollow, exhausted closure. A father of one victim expressed the sentiment of many when he said that the execution did not bring his daughter back. It merely removed a monster from the world. The legacy of the Zama apartment murders is a complex and enduring one. The case served as a horrific wake-up call for Japan and for the world. It forced a painful national conversation about mental health, the inadequacy of support systems for troubled youth, and the dark side of the digital connectivity that defines modern life. In direct response, Twitter Japan and other platforms intensified their efforts to identify and flag posts containing suicidal ideation, implementing algorithms designed to direct users to helplines and support resources. While a positive step, these measures are often seen as a digital bandage on a deep, societal wound. The underlying issues of isolation, pressure, and the stigma surrounding mental health in Japan remain deeply ingrained. The case also stands as a stark parable for the digital age. It illustrates how the very tools designed to bring us together can be perverted to isolate and target the most vulnerable among us. Shiraishi was not a phantom. He was a man who understood the language of online despair better than the authorities tasked with protecting the public. He weaponized empathy and sold a lethal lie to those who were too desperate to see through it. The apartment building in Zama still stands, a silent witness to the horrors it contained. The specific unit has been cleansed and remains empty, a void within a structure of ordinary life. But the story of what happened there echoes far beyond its walls. It is a permanent cautionary tale, a reminder that in the vast and often anonymous landscape of the internet, the most dangerous predators are not the ones who threaten, but the ones who listen, who understand, and who offer a hand in the darkness, not to save, but to destroy. The tragedy of the Zama apartments forces us to ask a difficult question. As we build ever more sophisticated networks for communication, are we also, unintentionally, building better traps? The silence that follows is its own unsettling answer.